I don't do anything all the time.
As a
I have a template.
Yeah, no routine. Yeah.
I have a template, which obviously has a routine built into it because it's stuff, but I don't use all of the template on every mix. And I pick and choose, and the template changes. Like once a month, I'm doing a save as because I get sick of something or I think of a better way to do something or whatever. So that is routine. And part of being creative is having a routine. It's color coding your tracks the same way. It's doing all of the things that are routine so that when you hear something you don't like, you can now do something that has nothing to do with your routine because everything else is being taken care of by stuff you're familiar with. So you can dive in immediately and be creative and do the stuff that's all one-off. So for me, it feels like everything I do on a mix is one-off. But the reality is it's all built on a foundation of things I've built before.
Yeah.
Even though those things change.
Yeah. And so one question that I like to gauge, because every mix engineer is different, is there anything like a typical process? You know, do you expect a mix for you to always take the same amount of time, or can some of them stretch out and some of them are easy?
Yeah, I have no idea about the time. Definitely not. I definitely have a way I progress through the mix. I mean, the session prep is very important, all that color coding and track ordering and blah, 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 where half the time you're not even listening to music. You're just doing it.
Do you spend a lot of time organizing before you start gain staging and listening?
Yeah, and I never gain stage. Like, what is that? I have VCAs all over the session where I can change the gain structure in lots of different ways at any time. So yeah, the gain staging is just like, oh, I'm hitting the mix bus too hard. Great, pull everything down. Oh, I'm not hitting the mix bus hard enough. Right, push everything up. And there are 3 or 4 different places I can do that to very quickly hear what I'm doing. But yeah, I'm not looking at meters to set things up that way at all. And it's why mastering engineers hate me. But it's, yeah, I don't pay any attention to that stuff because stuff feels different with different amounts of level going through it. So when you know the stuff that it's going through, you immediately like, oh man, I'm crushing the mix bus. I got to back stuff off. You know that intuitively and you just do it. And then there is a process in how I build the track up. I will invariably start with drums because it's usually the most tracks and I need it to act like one instrument. So I've got to figure that out first before I can do anything else. And the last things to go in will be the vocals. Now, I'm familiar with the vocals. Like, I listen first to everything, and I listen to the rough mix and whatever. So I get a handle on what the arrangement is, and I know the job the vocals are going to do. I'm not, like, saving it for last and like, oh, I didn't realize they were singing there or not singing there. Like, I know what's coming, but the vocals go in last. And they are always the most important thing in the mix. So it's not like they're not going to get care and attention, but it's just once they're in, all that matters is them. So you might not be getting the most out of the really intricate guitar arrangement in the second verse if the vocal's in all the time, because you can't focus on those details while the vocal's in. So I like to build the track up to the point where I think it all works, then get the vocals in. Then usually there's some stuff like, oh, right, well, with the way the backgrounds are, now I got to kind of rethink what I'm doing with this or that or the other thing. And sometimes not. Sometimes the vocals just come in and you tweak them and then they sit and then that's where you are with the mix. So, but that's generally the process. In terms of the amount of time, I have no idea because I don't work on one mix at a time. If I'm mixing a record, I work on the whole record all at once. And as soon as I am bored or distracted or don't know what I want to do next or don't want to do what has to be done next, close it, move on to the next song. And then I come back to it later that day, the next day, like whenever its turn comes up again.
Wow. It's really interesting to hear this amount of detailed information coming from, you know, someone like you, no pun intended, because there is so much advice out there. There's so much information out there. Some people will say, the first thing you do is you get all your clips in, you just turn everything down to minus infinity, and then you put the vocal up first, then you move everything around it, or the first thing you do is the drums, and then you get the kick drum and the bass first. But it sounds like it's much more fluid than that. Like there's no one way of doing things. You have to adapt to each song. Look,
at the end of the mix, everything is in.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit how you get there? It's all got to get in at some point. So it can go in any order. And it just is, what order can you build a mix where you don't have to go back and redo a bunch of stuff? That's the most productive and creative way forward. So whatever that is for you is how you should work. And there are people who work with vocal first. great. If this weird gain staging thing of making sure that the level is exactly something at some point in the signal chain, if that's what makes you be able to mix quickly and fluidly and creatively, you should absolutely do that. But if you find yourself in the creative flow and then look at a meter and say, oh my God, I'm at minus 18. I'm supposed to be at minus 16 at that point. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Ignore it. Ignore it. It doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter. You can always change the gain structure later if it turns out it does matter. And most likely it doesn't matter.
Wow. Are there any things that you is there any one thing that in particular you would like to flag up and just say to people, don't do it because you see people doing it? My thing is I see too many people advising that you pull, a single band up to 16 dB and sweep around in this kind of and then pull it down when you don't like it.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the time you're not going to like plus 16 of any frequency. So yeah, I mean, look, that's the best way to find annoying cymbal frequencies that you want to dip out. Of course, like that's a technique for surgically cueing. Sure, I'm not a tone meister. I can't listen to it and say 3783, that's the frequency. Like, fuck, I don't know. It's somewhere between 2 and 5K.
Yeah. And
I'm going to find it by turning it into a band. That's why my channel strip, if you hold down control and turn any of the frequency knobs, it just turns the whole thing into a bandpass filter so you can find stuff. So yeah, you should absolutely do that. But you're only doing that because you've heard something like, man, the cymbals are really harsh when he's on the crash ride. I got to do something about that in this section. Not, I need to go through, okay, the thing I would advise you against doing is soloing up every track and working on it. That is ridiculous. Nobody listens to the tracks in solo. And I can give examples. There's a Rival Sons track I mixed where if I had gone track by track, I would have high-passed the room mics because there was a bunch of bass bleed into the room mics for the drums. And it would have ruined the fucking song. Because that bass messiness made it sound gigantic. And I never even would have heard it if part of my process was to go through every track and set my high-pass filters to where I thought they should go. Take care of problems when the problems exist. Don't go looking for problems. If there's a problem, you will hear it because that's your job, is to hear the problems and fix them. That's what mixing is. You go from something that you don't want to hear to something that has nothing in it that you don't want to hear. That's how you know a mix is done, right? You can listen all the way through and there's nothing you would change. Great. So that's it, though. That's as much as you can define the process, and everybody's process is going to be different. But 99% of the time, you should just be reacting to what you hear. Don't do stuff because you think you're supposed to.
Don't imagine that there's a routine that will help you every time. This is an art and not science.
Yes. The job of the mix engineer is to solve creative problems with technology. How's that?